Hello, everyone. This is Christina, the Black Swan Sybil, greeting you in the love and the light of the one infinite creator. Welcome back to our continuing conversations where we intend to ground that 5D energy into this planet. Please take a moment right now to like and share this video to be a supporter of this channel. Your support keeps us in production and helps us to level up our show. So I'm excited today again to be speaking with Anna Medium. She is a spirit guide medium with 17 years plus experience in channeling and receiving messages from her own guides, as well as the guides of hundreds of people from all around the world. She specializes in spiritual and self-development, reading the Akashic records, karmic clearing, and entity or negative energy removal. And part of her soul's calling is to empower others to remember who they are and to recognize who they are not, so that they can free themselves from their self-imposed limitations of the mind. In this interview, we're going to get to hear about some of the remarkable psychic experiences that Anna had in childhood and later, including having visions and seeing apparitions. For this interview, she has chosen this specific collection of stories because they form the background for her understanding of some very important and very relevant spiritual issues affecting all of us on Earth today. So later in the interview, we're going to try and tie the stories together to see what we can learn from them that could be useful to each of us on our journeys of healing and expansion. These stories also give us some great background into Anna's career as a psychic medium. We already got to know Anna a bit in the first interview, so if you haven't seen that, please do go back and watch it. And now in the second interview, we are going to get to know more about Anna and how she came to do the kind of mental and emotional healing work that she's doing today. Hi, Anna, welcome back.
Hi. Oh, last time there was something that popped up telling me I needed to click something.
Okay.
We're recording,
We're
right?
recording.
Okay, great. I don't have to do anything this time. Awesome.
This is great. It's so great to see you again. So I already did the
Me
introduction.
too.
Yeah. All right, so this is a really exciting topic. It's really interesting timing, how this is happening, because the time of the year, people are thinking about esoteric, spiritual, scary things, but this isn't
Halloween, yeah.
right. This is more about what's really, it's like, okay, what's that really about? So would you like to start by like telling us what you saw, what you experienced as a child, seeing apparitions and things?
Yeah, so it's funny because as like a really little kid, I don't actually remember. I have a couple of memories of seeing apparitions. But then there are other experiences that I don't remember. And my mom would mention to me later on, oh yeah, well, when you were little, you used to say this and that to me. So now as I got older, what ended up happening, and I feel like this is also part of the reason that I lost like some of the earlier memories, is because for me it was negative things that I remember seeing as I was younger. And so when I got a little bit older, it was just this I was like constantly praying. Because as I mentioned in the last interview, I was raised by born again Christians. I was constantly saying scripture verses to like protect myself at night, which it was definitely a positive thing. But on the other hand, I was also praying, please don't let me see anything. Please don't let me see anything. That's what I remember doing. So um, I have a few memories, like I said, of some apparitions, and mostly what I remember is just asking this, like, don't let me see anything, don't let me see anything. And then for like quite a while, I ended up just not able to see anything. And so then when I got then when I came out of Christianity, then it ended up this thing of, okay, like get that back.
Can I ask you, without going too far down the rabbit hole about what it looks
Yeah.
like or what it is that you see. I mean, I'm not this clairvoyance is not my strength. So I mean, I do sometimes see things, but I'm always wondering, did I see something? Like, I'm not really sure if I saw something. Like, I think I might have seen something, but I'm not really sure. And so I just kind of like I just try to apply the same principle to clairvoyance and my other extra senses as I do to
Mhm.
my strongest ones. And it's just like if it feel how I feel when I see it, like whether or not I'm seeing something or not. Can you like explain for people who aren't sure if they're seeing something, like what it might look like if you are? Maybe.
Well, the things that I saw when I was a kid definitely look different
Right.
from how I see things now. Like now, for instance, um, and now for years, I've seen energy literally 24/7. And it kind of reminds me of like static on a TV screen. It's like everywhere I'm looking, no matter where I'm looking, like literally just in the empty space everywhere. It's just this kind of stuff just going like this. It's just like this. It looks kind of like it's not like the exact same as what you would see on a TV screen. But that's like the closest thing I can like think of that we like have all seen, to like say what this kind of looks like. But it's just like this stuff out there kind of doing this, kind of like the way that static on a TV screen does that as well. Um
Can you confirm that you don't see it as much when you're not as mindful? Like if you're like not present, you don't see it?
well, I've seen it for so long now that unless I'm like paying attention to it, or unless it's just like super like crazy, at moments, like maybe I just meditated and then I open my eyes and it's just like instead of doing this, it's like a
Yeah.
like this. Um, Now, like I know it's there, but I'm not like thinking about it really. It's like it's something I always see, but it's like background noise. You know, um, it's like getting back to the TV analogy. It's like if you have the TV playing in the background, something that you're not really listening to, somebody else is watching a show, you're paying attention to something else. You're like part of you knows it's there, that you're not thinking about it, anymore. So that, I mean, that's how it is most of the time because it's always there. you know so that's one of the things I always see. um
So when you're a child,
I'm trying to think like how to get into the how to get into the other stuff that I see now. I don't know if I should do that yet because that's gonna end up kind of, you know, coming up as we go into the stories. Hello, Marley. Oh, I should bring her down to that.
so I think we were talking about seeing apparitions as a child.
Yeah.
So, is there anything more you want to say about your childhood seeing visions, seeing apparitions?
So, like I said, so as a child, it was pretty much just negative things that I was seeing, or at least that's what I remember. That's what I was telling my mom about. I was telling her about the negative stuff that I was seeing. I didn't know how to protect my space or anything. So as I got older, not even that much older, actually, that's when I started really praying this, not to see things. Um, so then it started turning more into, and I already had this. I already had like, obviously I had, an internal clairvoyance as well. It wasn't only visible stuff, but um then I would say it really started morphing into that, developing into that. So then it was more visions I was having. And I would say as I got to the age of around 7 or 8, that's when I really remember suddenly being aware. obviously, in my sect, I almost called it cults, I guess it kind of is. But in my sect, cult, whatever you want to call it, um, that obviously, like psychic abilities, things like that, they were allowed, but not allowed. Like
Mhm.
they were allowed because they weren't psychic abilities. They
Mhm.
were the gifts of the Holy Spirit,
Right.
So, I mean, the Bible lists like a whole slew of different gifts that a person can
Right.
have from the Holy Spirit,
Right.
and they might as well just say clairvoyance, clairaudience, clear this, clear that, you know, seeing spirits, whatever. They list like a whole ton of things in there. Um, but it has to be spoken of in a specific way, because those are the gifts of the Holy Spirit, and anything, that's not coming from the Holy Spirit is demonic, right? So you can have the same things, but you have to be calling it in a different, way. You have to term it differently, otherwise it's demonic, basically.
Oh, I know. I know. And
Yeah, I'm
they
sure
have
you can
ways.
relate to that. Yeah.
Yeah, if you speak weird or if you say things that are a little off, they'll be like, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you
So
leave and you can't come back, or if you leave and you can't speak to your people because you're not doing what you're supposed to do, then yes, that is a cult. If you can't leave without
yeah,
consequences,
yeah,
then you're in a cult.
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Well, but anyway, you started hearing the names of thought forms and entities when you were like 8 or 7, did you say?
So, yeah. So when I was like 7 or 8, yeah, this is when I really noticed that my psychic abilities expanded, and even though, like I said, I didn't have like an exact term for that, still I remember really noticing it. um, because I started having a lot of visions, which is something that you were allowed to have in church. They literally had a time in our churches where, like, they literally had like a time
Mhm.
um, in the middle of the service where like after praise and worship, then there would be this kind of like quiet time there. um, that was just for people to like receive like messages, and like anybody in the whole congregation could basically say whatever they were getting, whatever visions they were seeing. It was mostly people seeing visions, and they would say them, or some people would get it more like clairaudiently, or more just knowing something. And so they would say those things, and that was like expected. You were allowed to do that. I was the only kid
Yeah.
that would do that. But I definitely I started getting more and more of those. um, and yeah, that was the other thing that you mentioned, that also started happening, where I started okay, well, I'll say too, before I say that, I'll say too that also I had always had this thing, even before that, of like staring at people, which you can get away with when you are a kid, right? And I would just stare and stare and stare at a person. And I remember it would be like I start looking at them. And then the more that I just look at them and like look at their eyes, like it just felt like I was like peeling layers of an onion. And always where it would lead me to, this was like these were my natural abilities. I mean, to say why I ended up, you know going into one akashic readings, but then especially like clearing entities, clearing thought forms from people, is I would be just like, it felt like I was peeling these layers, and it was like I'm looking at fears, and I'm looking at these things, and like it's like their behaviors and how they're acting right now and how they're speaking, and it just felt like I would understand it all. Oh, well, that's because you're you have this, you have this fear, or you have this anger because of this, and you have this anger about that. you know Sometimes it would be really uncanny, and I would end up finding that out, like that it was something like really specific and accurate. And then other times it would be more like general, like I'm just feeling like a fear, or I'm feeling like an anger or something that they're just like operating out of. But yeah, as I got older, this became, well, I didn't take things personally, so much, because I just felt like, yeah, that's your issue, because I tended to be taken the wrong way, like a lot. Um, but yeah, I remember, like, I would walk through. Now, this was when I was 7 or 8. My parents were going through this messianic sort of phase. My dad is still like, oh my God, he's so into that. He's so into like Passover and all the Jewish holidays, the Jewish roots of
Mhm.
Christianity. So it's like so funny that I married somebody Jewish, because I literally had like a Christian Jewish bat mitzvah and everything. But when I was 7 or 8, yeah, they were going through this like messianic phase. And I remember like going through this. There was like this hallway that led to this like the sanctuary. It wasn't like a large church, and it actually wasn't even our building. It was like some other building that we were sort of using as well. Some other church was letting us use it, but I would go like through this hallway, and I remember like I could see people like through the windows, and sometimes, or there were like other doors, and there were like people like in these rooms walking by this hallway, and sometimes I would just like hear like a name,
Mhm.
and it would be like control,
Mhm.
or just maybe fear or insecurity or anger or something like this. Most of them were kind of general, when that started happening, but like I recognized it immediately, though, exactly what it was. I was like, oh, this is like a name. And of course, then I was calling all of them demons. They're all demons. Um, so this is a name of a demon, but it would be like I'd be like walking through this hallway, and I would like turn, and I would see somebody, and I would just feel this like energy, which I wouldn't have called it back then. That's a demonic word, but
Right.
but I would feel like this energy, and yeah, there would be like a name that would come to me, and I would know, okay, this person has this entity.
Mhm.
So so whoa, that's been happening for a really really long time, and my like awareness of negativity has just been happening since I was born. So it's funny, because the council has said this before, almost like here on earth we kind of generalize gifts. There they have like whole like slews of like lists out there. They have like very like specific names, which can be really helpful,
Yeah.
because it can help you, like it can guide you to what your like really specific underlying gifts are, and then also these broader, more like general ones. But I would definitely say, I don't know what to call it, but I definitely have a gift specifically for sensing out negative things, for feeling somebody's blocks,
Mhm.
which I know like not all mediums have, not all psychics have, which is why different mediums and different psychics will specialize in various things. But I have this really specific ability to be able to feel out the differences in vibrations, and to which I really had to develop, though.
Mhm.
It's so I spent years really working on mastering the gift that I had. But I definitely was born with this ability of, okay, this is light and this is dark,
Mhm.
negative, positive, whatever you want to call it. Um, and the more I developed that, I was able to like start really like more like classifying them. And that really developed into being able to get really specific about what people's like blocks are, and what their underlying beliefs are, and what entities are there, that's like shooting out of that needs to be cleared. So not everybody likes to look at negativity, especially things like negative entities, negative, entity attachments, even thought forms, not in the way that I look at them, because I feel what a thought form is. But honestly, I think that there aren't so many people that have that, like, really specific ability. And I'm not like saying, oh, me, I'm so blah blah blah, because you know um plenty of other people have some ability like that, that's like very specific, and maybe not as many people have it. And when you spend 17 years, though, like developing what your gifts are, you're going to end up coming into like a knowing of more what your underlying, more like specific to you, gifts are, if that makes sense. But I also feel like, the darkness can be harder to look at. That can be, like, I would say, a harder path for a soul, or a more challenging path for a soul. So I wouldn't say it's on everybody's journey to be like removing all of their entities and removing all of these negative things, even though it would be helpful for everybody. I don't think that everybody is ready to do that. And that's the reason why I feel like, um, these specific abilities, um, are not really as common. You know, I haven't really found people so far that really have that, like, specific thing where, specifically, since a kid, they were noticing, names of, like, entities were popping in their head, and where that became this, like, huge, like, theme to, like, explore,
Hmm.
and I would say that's a big part of the reason. Not everybody is really required to do that on their specific journey, whatever it is, because not everybody's ready for that.
Right.
So,
There was a story that you told about a vision that you had. Not to change the subject, but before you continue going on
mhm.
too far, I want to ask if you want to share that story about the rabbi having.
Yeah. So, this, God, this must have been when I was, okay. So this would have been when I was 11. All
Mhm.
right. So we were still at this same, messianic synagogue. And yeah, and we had a rabbi. He was an actual Jewish, rabbi, but he was a convert.
Mhm.
So he was a Jew that had converted to Christianity, and he still became a rabbi. And so then it's like a Christianized version, basically, of Judaism, in a
Mhm.
sense. So, actual Judaism is pretty different, I will say, from, being in my husband's family. But as so as this grew, um it wasn't only happening like in church, because God, I remember quite a slew of those, where I would get a vision in church, but they also were just happening to me, like, at home, um just kind of randomly. um and there's a couple, actually, that I'll get into, but yeah, I'll get into this one first. So there was this vision I had when I was about 11. And so in in this vision, I remember, for one thing, because they're wanting me to say this, I kind of, I'm always like saying, as things are coming through, right? I'm always tuned into my guides when I'm doing an interview or I'm doing whatever. But one thing is, I'm never just like talking like right now. It was the same vibration as when I like go and I'm like doing a reading or whatever. Um, except I would say that some of the time, like for this one in particular, like some of them I would be even more relaxed, or sometimes it would almost feel like I'm really zoning out, almost like it was almost like a partial dream,
Mhm.
and then like almost even sometimes like a mix, like partially I feel almost like I'm dreaming it, and then I am more here and it's kind of continuing. So I would be in like a pretty like kind of hypnotic kind of state, or kind of trancy kind of state sometimes when I would get these. But most of the ones that I got in church, obviously I was a little bit more like present or aware, but still there was the same like kind of inducing sort of energy that I would suddenly step into. And I feel like my guides would just sort of pull me into that state. And they're pointing out that that's actually a gift too. That's like a specific gift. They're saying that's a channeling ability. So they're wanting me to, say that because again, because there's not a lot of information about the specifics of abilities and gifts that we have here right now. I know eventually they're going to want to say more about s- really specific gifts like that to help people more like target their abilities to be able to like expand on them. Um, but anyway, so this one that I had though, uh, well, I was at my house, so I wasn't in the church or anything, but it started with this vision of hell, actually. Um, but in this section, because there's different sections of hell, right?
Yeah.
In this section, there wasn't like fire or anything.
Mhm.
It was more cold actually. I didn't see like snow or like ice, but it just felt cold. It was like extremely dark. There wasn't any light. And I just saw this like it was all like very black um rock, but more like put together, like more like solid rock, almost like as if you're like standing on like a cliff or something, but it was the ground. And I remember seeing this entity, and he's in this dark cloak, and he's all blue, like ice blue. And he almost looked almost like really cold, like ice kind of. But like hands, face, I could see his hands and his face, and he had this like dark black cloak on. And he just says the word master. And all of a sudden, it was like a camera turning. This was like such a vivid vision. It was like a camera is turning. All of a sudden, I'm looking at him. I see him kind of from the side. And then all of a sudden, the camera like turns like this. And then I see this other entity there. And this entity was like supposed to be Satan.
Okay.
Okay. In this vision. Now I would just think of this as like
Mhm.
just like a hierarchy. This entity maybe is like a principality, and this one is a demon, something
Mhm.
like that. Okay. And so this one says master, the camera turns, and then this entity here, and this entity does look like fire. This entity is all like orange with like red, like kind of patterns on himself. Same thing, a dark cloak. I'm just seeing the face, the neck, the hands. And then this entity says control. And suddenly, in this other demon's hand, suddenly this swirling disc appears in his hand. It's this swirling, the same color as his skin, actually. It was this icy blue. So, kind of this mix of like white and like blue. And this entity, he says control, and this appears in this demon's hand. And then all of a sudden I see out in front of them, there are these dark silhouettes of these people. And I knew immediately, okay, this is the congregation. This is our Messianic synagogue. This is everybody in the congregation. And this entity throws it out all over them. So this disc just goes over everybody in the congregation. And then it turns back to this uh, second entity, and he says manipulation. And then again, this bluish, whitish, swirling disc appears in this demon's hand, and he throws it out over this crowd, right? And that was the whole vision. And so I told my mom this, and what I did not know, because I was young,
Mhm.
okay, and they were obviously not going to talk to me about this. They hadn't mentioned any of this to me yet. But my parents were considering leaving the
Mhm.
synagogue, actually. And actually, a whole lot of people were considering leaving the synagogue because they were all feeling this really off energy and nobody knew why. Um, And so I told my mom that, and then she told other people that. And then all of a sudden I have, because oh God, just because of the visions that I had, also I sang.
Mhm.
And I used to get standing ovations all the time for singing, and I'd be invited to sing in front of the church. And so then at points I was even like on the praise and worship team. So I was like the kid
Mhm.
in the congregation that all the grown-ups were just like, oh my God, you know, about. So they felt like, okay, if Anna's getting this, we should listen to
Mhm.
this. Um, and they really did, like, because yeah, I ended up having the youth minister's wife. Well, she was also the youth minister. We didn't really think of it as the wife. It was just they were both the
Mhm.
youth
Mhm.
pastors. But so she calls me into this kind of side room with just her and like a couple other people, and she's telling me, "Okay, can you just walk me through this vision? What was this that you saw?" And so I'm just like stating to her what it was. Well, they ended up leaving like shortly after that.
Mhm.
They ended up leaving the congregation. So they took it really seriously. So what I ended up finding out later when I was older, not that much older, because I was already 11 by the time, so I was maybe 13 or so, but also nobody at that point knew it.
Yeah.
So my parents hadn't told me that they were thinking of leaving.
Mhm.
But by the time they found out why, I was probably old enough for them to tell me anyway. I would have been around 12 at that point when we left. So, but yeah, what I didn't know was that the rabbi was actually having an affair with the secretary, with his secretary at the church, and actually, this was basically he was just controlling and manipulating this woman.
Mhm.
So because she was just like in a bad marriage, and so, like it was. I don't blame the secretary at all. I definitely blame the rabbi.
Yeah.
So, but that was the situation, which I had no clue about. And so it was like this vision like revealed that situation to me in the way that it was going to when I was 11, you know. And also in the way that it would come through me
Mhm.
specifically, because with
Right.
me, it makes sense with, again, with my gifts, that it's going to come through in that kind of way. It's
Mhm.
not going to say, oh, this is the result.
Right.
It's going to say, this is the motive.
Mhm.
This is what's causing what you're about to see.
Yeah.
Or even this is what's causing the off feeling that you have, you know. And I definitely feel like, in a way, the demon almost kind of represented the rabbi in a sense.
Yeah.
It's like this demon was first, influencing the rabbi, you could say, and through that also influencing the whole congregation. Um, but yeah, I'll move into this other one. So when it wasn't that much older, actually. So I did not understand this vision at the time because I was in Christianity, and this vision was guiding me out of Christianity. And
Yeah.
I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know how to interpret it. But so this one, I am suddenly, and this one again, I was really tranced out. This one felt like half dream, half like tear,
Yeah.
receiving it. But I'm in this, like, again, like a dark place. It's really night. Um, and I turn and I see this church building, and it's all gray. And to me, this was saying it's dead. There's no life, it's just dead. And I see all of these gray dancers, which that was a thing at our church. The flag team, the dancing team, the singing praise and worship team, all these freaking teams. So this team comes out, with their banners, flags, and they're waving them around, and they're also just holding hands, and they're just dancing in this line, streaming out of this building, and they're all gray. Um, and so, yeah, they come streaming out in this line, and then I see this man, and he's wearing all black. And right away, I know, okay, this man is the Antichrist. And they start following him. And he's walking forward, and they're just following him, and they're dancing, like, just really blindly is the way that it felt. Like they're so blind. It was the feeling of this. They're so dead
Mm.
to, like, spirits, um so they can't feel the spirit, and they're so blind, and they're just following this Antichrist who's leading them astray. And then the Antichrist stops, and he turns, and then I see the ground is all open to the side of him, and to his left, and there is this pit of fire. And these people are literally, there's a diving board, and these people are literally getting on the diving board and just jumping into the lava like it's a freaking pool.
Okay.
And like they literally can't see that it's lava at all. They don't see who this man is. They don't see this, like, lava pit that they're actually going into. So that's like part one of the vision, right? And then suddenly I'm just walking. This was like, it was almost like I'm role playing
Mhm.
in this. It was that vivid. So now I'm walking, and then I end up in this spot where the ground is totally dry, totally cracked. And I'm like, I'm again, it's night. I'm in this dark place, and I notice there's this forest to my left, but the ground almost looked like if there had been like an earthquake or something, and there's like the cracks in the ground. And at the same time, like, really, really dry, just like this really, really dry, cracked ground, which really stood out to me. And the forest to my left really stood out as well. And then suddenly the sky, I look up, and there's this really ominous, like, cloudy dark sky, and it's like rolling with all of this thunder. And there's like lightning crackling in it. And suddenly I turn, and to my left there is this baby male deer. There's this buck that slowly, like, steps out of the forest, and he's just staring at me. And even right now saying this, I'm getting chills, because this deer is just staring at me, and he's just looking at me. And I just had this intense feeling from this deer, like, this deer is my friend. This deer is trying to help me. He's trying to warn me. He's trying to help me see. He wants me to know I need to get out of there. I need to get out of there right now. And then suddenly this arrow shoots down from the sky, and this rolling thunder, I knew this, okay, this is like God, this is like Father God, right? Suddenly this arrow comes down from the sky and shoots the deer, and I knew, okay, this is Father God shooting the deer. And my brain is just going, excuse me, but why the, why the freak is God shooting this deer? you
Mhm.
know um and I just ran. I ran into the forest, and suddenly I turned, and there's like all of these people, and especially women. There's like a lot of women, um, just running through this forest, like they're trying to get away from something, and they're going into the forest. Okay, well, once I actually left Christianity, I went, okay, first off, it was to my left. The forest is to my left. This is all to my left. Um, and the left is like your feminine side. Okay. Left can also be considered like the dark path, or like an alternate kind of path, like one that you almost shouldn't go down, that
Right.
I'm fleeing towards, you know. So both of those things, but also like the divine feminine, nature, Mother Earth, um, and also the idea of like every other religion to Christianity was like pagan. It wasn't, that's what they would have called it. It was like heretical. So that's even what this ended up representing to me later. It represented like New Age, the forest, all of these new beliefs that I ended up coming into, and also obviously that you know there's God, like the universe, the actual loving force, that just creates. And then there's this deity that people have personified, who's described in the Bible as, vengeance is mine. And
Thou shalt
all
not put
these
any
like,
other gods before me.
yeah, jealous, rageful, wrathful, all these things. So at the time, I just let it be, because at first my mom, I told her this vision, and she's like, "Oh, well, maybe the deer was trying to manipulate you, because how else are you going to interpret that vision?" And I just said, "No, mom, this deer was my friend. This deer was trying to help me." And so she was like, okay, I don't know. We didn't know how to interpret it, How the freak do you interpret that? She's like, oh, well, maybe even the innocent are killed sometimes too.
Mhm.
And no shit. when
Yeah.
you're when you're in that kind of religion, I mean, yeah, I would say so. But yeah, that vision was definitely like guiding me, more like away from
Mhm.
Christianity. 9:33.
Mhm.
I've only looked at the clock at 8:33 and now 9:33. That's so funny.
Mine said 14:33. Well, it just said 22, but when you said that, I looked and it was 14:33:15. I don't know if that means anything. It just
14:15.
yeah, I mean, it's like here, jump, jump. Um,
Yeah.
well, I don't want to color your experience with my own. I had an experience of hell, a vision, and the message that my guides gave to me is I'm making the same decisions. I'm staying in the same place, and I'm trying to make this the thing that doesn't work. I'm trying all these different ways to make it work, but I'm staying in this doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. And
Yeah.
Albert Einstein calls that insanity, but that's also a living hell for someone
Yeah.
who doesn't realize, like, you don't realize that you're diving into the lava, you know? Like,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
hell. It is. It's hell.
Right. Yeah. 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 Christianity tends to personify hell too, in a sense. They want to like say it's just this like location where God is not, which to me is just so ridiculous. They're like, oh, God creates hell, but he's not in it.
Right.
He's completely separate from it. Okay, then it can't exist at all.
Yeah.
That's just ridiculous. But anyway.
Yeah. Hell for me was trying to please a God that could never be pleased. It just
Yeah.
never was enough. God never said to me, "You did great. Why don't you take a break?
Yeah, like extremely like
Why don't you be nice to
furious.
yourself? Relax. You deserve to
Yeah.
get a massage." God never told me
Mhm.
that. God always said,
Yeah,
"Just give me your
exactly.
best. Whatever your best is, I'm happy." Am I saved?
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
know. You'll never find out until it happens.
Yeah.
You just never know. That uncertainty is always there. Is God pleased? Not really sure. God loves you unconditionally, but are you going to make it? You just never know. That's hell to me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you were also seeing visions or entities about your father, like with your parents. I
Yeah.
was the one that is mentioned that you might want to describe when you were 13.
Mhm. So, yeah. So, yeah, I'm going in a chronological order because I would say that that other vision that I had was probably when I was 12 or 13. It was soon after we had left that synagogue. Um, but yeah, probably around that same time, really. Well, there was this issue that I was having where I uh I would be at my house. Obviously, I did not understand what empathic abilities were, okay, at the
Mhm.
time. I had to figure that out through experience, which I did, but and there again, I didn't have a name for it once I did figure out what it was, but I would just be at my house. So my dad owned his own business, and he was a pest control man. So he owned a pest control service. We lived in Florida, so it's tons of bugs
Yeah.
and always hot.
Yeah.
So always lots of bugs to kill, sadly, but that's what he did. So he would be out, and I would be at the house because by that point my mom was homeschooling me. She homeschooled me from the time I was in fourth grade. So by that time I was at the house usually in the day when he would be out. Um, so I started I started just suddenly out of nowhere on certain days I would just feel this overwhelming shame and embarrassment, and I would rack my mind silly for hours on end sometimes for like almost a whole day. I would be racking my brain going, okay, why is this there? What did I do? And I'm like trying to think everything I did that day. I'm trying to think of every person that I spoke to. And then I'm like, okay, it couldn't have been today. Must have been yesterday. What did I do yesterday? Who did I talk to yesterday? The day before, I'd go through like a whole week and I'd go, okay, I didn't do anything embarrassing. And oh my God, if I had done anything that could have been perceived as embarrassing, then I'd just be like, obsessing
Yes.
over that thing that I hadn't really cared about before that, that I just
Yeah.
kind of been like, okay, whatever, just, let that go. Okay, whatever. But then I started correlating it like, and um, to like later, I kind of ended up losing that where it just ended up feeling like, again, like it was this thing with myself almost. But there were definitely points where I was like very aware of what it was. So, but I started correlating it to, um, okay, my dad just came home and suddenly he's going on and on about this thing that he regrets saying to a client while he was at their house. Oh, he feels so embarrassed by it. It was so stupid. He used to
Mhm.
constantly get on to himself for like stupid things he would do, stupid things he would say, and he would feel this like shame and guilt and embarrassment over it. And he always had this like, oh, massive guilt like hanging over his head. So, but yeah, I started correlating it to that specifically. And then there was this one day, though, where I I think maybe I must have been alone in the house. I think my mom had like probably gone to the store or something. Um, so I was alone in the house and I went into my parents' bedroom, and my parents had this big mirror. And I looked in the mirror and I like saw myself, and I'm just like talking to myself, like basically about like how just awesome I am. Like, so I
How
figure
to
my
be
parents
proud of
had to
yourself.
have been out of the house because I was just like, in my space, just like talking to myself, like, you're so awesome. I am so awesome. Look at you.
That's a healthy thing to do. We should be doing that.
Really, yeah, I had it
He
right.
said,
Yeah,
be
in
like
that
children.
moment. So,
Jesus said, be like children.
yeah, yeah.
Maybe that means telling yourself you're freaking awesome in the mirror.
We should all do it. We should all do it. I see myself right here in this reflection. You are awesome. You're awesome, Anna. All
Beautiful.
right. So,
Beautiful and amazing. I'm so proud of you.
so, um, so I'm looking in the mirror, right? And I'm just like saying this stuff to myself. And suddenly I feel this entity. But I know this was an entity, but this is really strange how I felt this thing, because it didn't take on an exact form. It didn't have like a humanoid form. I'm just saying this in the mirror, and suddenly this sort of wall approaches, and it literally covers the whole wall. It covers the mirror, it covers the entire wall. And it was just this feeling
Yeah.
of shame and guilt and embarrassment. And it was like it was approaching me. And at that time, I had no idea how to do anything about anything. And so I felt this here approaching me. And I just went, oh God, not again. Because I didn't know what to do with it. So that's all I said. And then, the next second it's just like and just filling me, flooding me with this emotion. So this thing that my dad would do all the time was just this entity
He was,
attached to him and constantly sending him this stuff, and obviously just covering him, and also being like around him sort of everywhere, and even just waiting for moments when it felt like, okay, he has done something that I could possibly make him feel something about. So sort of just hanging out in the space in this way, and then like turning into this like covering that he's wearing, and just sending him this emotion, because that's all it was. It wasn't like a thought,
right.
even though my mind would end up racing, you know about a certain thing. Its job wasn't, I'm sending you thoughts. It was just this intense, overwhelming, just crappy energy of this emotion. That's what it was. It was like this it was a wall of emotion, you know. So clearly, not all entities take on like a shape or like a humanoid shape, like a lot of people would think, because this one certainly didn't. um
Yeah. I mean, I don't know where we're at.
so that was that experience.
Talking about, yeah, I don't want to, I just want to tell you, if I hadn't, we were supposed to do this, well, no, we're on time doing this video, but we talked about doing this video, and there's been a whole bunch of stuff happening in the last 3 weeks in my life. And at the moment you're describing your dad's entity, I understand it when you're describing it, thanks to experiences that I've just had in the last 3 weeks.
Oh,
Like
wow.
literally when I'm sitting next to my partner, and and it's not all the time, right, but I can feel when there's an entity that is attached to him that just wants to cause conflict between us. And it's interesting because I've always felt it as soon as we met in person. I felt it. And we were newly connected and we don't have any patterns between us, so our entities were trying to figure out a way to get
Yeah.
to hook themselves in a position where they could interfere with our experiences. So anyway, I just want to say that I have experienced what you've just described, which is this entity that is not. It doesn't have any thoughts. It doesn't have a form. It's just it's a feeling that's kind of just hanging there, and it feels angry and irritable, and it's just those all those feelings: angry, irritable, annoyed, impatient, anything you can think of that describes that feeling. That's what this feeling is, that just lingers and is just waiting. Or I guess, I mean, I don't know how an entity works. I'm not an entity, but I can feel it there. And I'm looking with my eyes to see if there's anything matching this energy that I can point to and say, oh, this, I feel this because of this. But it's no, it's just a feeling there. Nobody's. Hmm.